Good morning, everyone. I can't see you all, this bright light, but thanks for coming, who's ever out there. Today's session is on Project Browser. Oh, can you hear me up back, by the way? You raise your hand if you can. Okay, great, thank you. Today's session is on Project Browser Strategic Initiative, many ways to contribute. There is a QR code here if you want to follow along the slides on your own, or you probably want to at some point get the slides because all the links to all the ways you can contribute are in the slide deck. All right, so what is the Project Browser? Dries, back in DrupalCon North America 2021, said the Project Browser makes it easy for site builders to find and install modules. The next year at DrupalCon, Dries said, we want to be able to discover great modules from within Drupal without having to go to Drupal.org and install those modules with a click of a button. Our target audience are site builders and those new to Drupal. So how do folks search for modules now? Well, they either go to the modules page, if they even know about Drupal.org, or they go to search on Google itself. The filters on the module page, as you can see, they're overwhelming. Most of our feedback from those new to Drupal think you have to fill out all of those things and they have no idea. And when they do, they end up getting no results. If they do find results, the results are very technical, very long, and very hard to understand. So right now we have a contrib module for Project Browser. So you can go install any Drupal site and bring in that contrib module. There's other ways to do it, which I'm going to show you. We're currently in beta 4, and we're working on our MVP. We're trying to get this from contrib space into core, so that whenever anybody installs Drupal, they will get Project Browser out of the box. That's our goal. So right now, if you go to the Project Browser page, you can just click a Try It Now button and spin up a Drupal 10 site with Project Browser installed. I'm going to show you how to do that in a minute. So what have we accomplished? Well, we've done a lot. We've added a decoupled architecture with Svelte, and I'm going to show you a little bit more about Svelte in a minute. We have a pluggable source system. We have faceted search, so you can search in many different ways. We have the click to install. And then we have a lot of other things here as well. Oh, sorry. We have, we're working on all these, and I think I'm going to touch all of these in the slide deck here. So how do you get involved? Everybody in this room, everybody in here can get involved. There are things for everybody to contribute. Being part of the Project Browser, which I said will be in core, it'll be installed when anybody installs Drupal. So that's pretty exciting if you want to be part of that, know that you had a role in making that happen for everybody. So first thing you can do, very simply, is just try Project Browser out and give us feedback. So there's a Try It Now link on that project page. There's a QR code here that directs you right to that, where you can actually spin that up. And it spins up a Drupal pod instance of Drupal 10 with the latest version of the Project Browser. So when you click on that Try It Now, it does take a few minutes to spin up. A lot of things will happen. You'll see code at the bottom. You'll see messages at the bottom that give you the progress. Don't worry about any of that. All you need to worry about is on the top right, the website will appear there. And at the top of that, there is a little link, an arrow. I just put the arrow on that. There's a little expand thing there where you can expand the website to fill in your full screen. There is the code on the left, so if you're interested in looking at the code, you can see the code as well. So basically, you log into this with admin, all lowercase. Click on the Browse Modules. So you go to Extend in the menu and then Browse. And then just give us feedback. We'll open an issue for you so you get contribution credit. Just go through it, look at the UI. Does it make sense? Would you, as a new user or a site builder, know what to do? So your feedback is very, very helpful. It has been helpful so far in building this product. So please continue to do that, or give this link to your friends if you know others that might give us good feedback on this. That's just a little bit more about how you can actually get to the different links. All right, so here's the project browser up here. I know it's small, but I'll get a little more detailed in a minute. First thing I should note is the data isn't real time. So if you go to project browser and you try to compare it to what's in Drupal.org, it might not match identically. This is loaded every month or so. We'll bring over a new set of data from Drupal.org. We're working on a real-time sync, but that is not ready yet. So right now it's just a manual sync of the data from Drupal.org. The default filters, one important one to know is it's only going to show you modules that are compatible with the version of Drupal that your site is running. So if your site is running Drupal 8, it's only going to bring you over modules that are compatible with Drupal 8. If you're running a Drupal 10 site, it'll only bring you over modules compatible with Drupal 10. That's a big help. How many people have searched for modules and you're ending up with a pile of Drupal 6 modules and you have no idea? If you're new, you have no idea that they're irrelevant to what you're looking for. So this is a big step just to only bring you information that's valuable to you in your search. It also only, the default is to only bring over modules that are under the security policy. So if they're not secure, they're not brought over as a default. Also, they have to be actively maintained. So we're trying to bring over modules that are the best fit for people who are newer, that are looking to install modules. Now, if you're somebody that knows what you're doing and wants to go install a sandbox module or experimental module or something that's not under the security policy, you certainly can do that. There's an advanced filtering that you can use. But the default is just bring us back the modules that fit those criteria, and we sort them by the highest number of installs. So the first ones that are displayed are the ones that you're most likely as a site builder to want to look at installing. All right, so one big aspect of this whole project is the automated updates initiative. So initially we just had, when you said, I want to install this module, it really just brought up a help screen. And it basically gave you the composer commands and told you to open up a terminal and take these steps. Now you can just click this button. So this is basically saying I found these two modules, Token Path Auto. I want to install, let's say I want to install Path Auto, right? So I click the add to install. In the bottom there, it's going to say in progress. It's going to say requiring modules, and it's going to show you where it is in the process. What this actually does for those of you who are more technical, it goes and tries to install this in a staging environment. So it's not updating your site right away. It goes and tries to install it. If it's successful, then it will apply it to your site. If it's not successful, it won't go and take that step. So you're not going to break your site. Again, we recommend doing this to, something that's not a production site, obviously. Once I install Path Auto, because Path Auto has a dependency on the token module, so that just means the token module has to be installed in order for Path Auto to work correctly. Automatically, it goes and finds all the dependent modules and installs those all for you. So as you can see, these both now say installed, and I only said to install Path Auto. Token is now installed as well. One little caveat is you might have to refresh the page to see that, because they're still working on getting that AJAX to work correctly. All right, so now what are some other ways that different individuals here can contribute? Well, there's a meta issue for logos. So a meta issue just means it's an issue that says, here's all the modules that we need to create logos for. But why do you want to create logos? Well, as you just saw, Path Auto and Token, it's nice to have some kind of visual representation. We have a default logo if there isn't a logo. But one thing we're looking for, and this also gives designers a chance to contribute, gives front-end people a chance to contribute. So you can just go in and create these logos. So you just select a module that you want to create a logo for, and you just say, it needs work, so you're going to do the work, and then you just move it to needs review, and some of you in here can just review those logos. Pretty straightforward, but you can ask us any questions on any of this. All right, so here's the specs just real quickly. They need to be 512 by 512 square dimension in PNG format without animations. Pretty straightforward. And they have to be 10K or less so they load quickly. So if you're reviewing logos, all you have to check is those criteria. Make sure that logos kind of fits into what the module is doing. It doesn't meet these criteria. And you get credit for reviewing these things as well. All right, so where is that used, that logo? Well, it's used, well, first of all, if you're a maintainer, you need to add that logo to logo.png in the root folder of the contrib in GitLab. So that's a change. We used to say put it as the first image in the project page on Drupal.org. If you did that, take it out of the first image and add it to the code base in logo.png. And you can ask if you have any questions on that. That's only for the maintainers, though. So it shows on the, in GitLab, it shows in the project browser, and it shows, on the project page. So that logo appears in multiple places if you add it to that logo.png. There's also a meta issue for creating the short descriptions. So right now, the descriptions, if you go to Drupal.org and look up any project, the descriptions are very long and they're very technical. For site builders and those new to Drupal, we want to come up with a very, very concise, non-technical, what does this module do in a very simplistic fashion so that people can just go there right away and say, oh, this might be something I want to look into further or not. Anybody that's interested in documentation, if you're a content editor, these are things that you can absolutely help with. So again, there are child issues here. You just pick a child issue for each one of the things you want to work on. So as I said, what does this module do in a non-technical way? Less than 200 characters. So, pretty much anybody here can help with that. Maintainers, if you're here, you want to add this description to the summary field off the description on the project page. That's where we're going to pull it from. And that does have a 200 character limit, which is why we match that. And it's going to display it on the card view up there. So it's going to have the logo, it's going to have the description. So your work is going to be visible right away to anybody that installs, a Drupal site and goes to look for modules. And that's pretty cool. Maintainers, once the issue goes from needs work to review to release and tested by the community, maintainers will create an issue for you, and you just make the change to logo.png, make the change to the summary field for the description, and then we will close you fix your issue, and then we as project browser maintainers will close the child issues on our side. All right, here's a big one. This is new, relatively new. Right now, Drupal.org, when you're creating a module, there are 55 categories to choose from. So I'm a site builder. I'm someone new to Drupal. I'm going to search for a module, search for something I want to add, some functionality to my newly installed Drupal site. How do I ever figure out what these 55 categories mean and where I would go to look? They're overlapping. Some of them aren't relevant anymore. So we created 19 new categories, got a lot of community feedback. So thank you to everybody that helped with that. So we're down to 19 categories, which are listed on the screen here. So a couple of things we're trying to do is we are trying to, first of all, figure out, do these categories make sense? If you are somebody newer to Drupal, site builder, somebody who's not very, that may not have as much technical expertise in Drupal, you just started out, would you be able to use these categories? So if you fall in that category, please let us know, and we can get some feedback from you. For instance, we have, access control. That basically means you're interfacing with the website in a certain way. Accessibility, administration tools, automation, content display, I won't go through all of them, content editing experience, developer tools, e-commerce, etc. would you be able to say, hey, I'm trying to build a shopping cart. I probably would want to go to the e-commerce category and see all the modules that fit in that category. Or I'm an administrator and I'm trying to, add some functionality. So you might go to admin tools. Same with multilingual. If you're trying to build a website for, some international community, something like Spanish, you could go to multilingual and figure out what some of the modules are there. So we're trying to simplify the process with these. So there is another QR code here. So another way you can contribute is look at the different categories. I know it's probably hard to read from there. Look at the different categories. Look at the scope that's next to it. Is that scope non-technical enough for you to understand what would fall into that categories? So our goal is to have a filter with the categories. Somehow you hover over that or you click on something that gives you all the categories and all these short non-technical blurbs about what falls into that category. Again, we need help from the community just giving us feedback on that. The next thing we need to do is, I said we had 55 categories. How do we take those 55 and map those down to the 19? How many people know how many modules are out there right now? Anybody? Roughly? Go ahead. 55,000? Yeah, it's over 50,000 right now. I don't know the exact number today, but I know it's over 50,000. So what a job that is, taking 50,000 modules, some of which right now, because there's no limit, right now, some of them have 30 categories assigned to them. We're going to limit that to 3 going forward. So we need to take all these modules, especially the top 100, the ones that people are most likely to find in their browsing, their search. We need to map those to the 19. So we've come up with a mapping. I don't know if Clayton's here, but Clayton helped with this at Design for Drupal during Contrib Day. Clayton and Chris Wells worked really hard on this, trying to come up with a mapping from the existing 55 to the new 19. Again, maintainers or anybody else, we'd love to get feedback on whether you think this is going to work or not, and what tweaks you might think that we should make to that. We really want to get as many maintainers as possible. So if you work with people who maintain modules, please let them know that we're doing this and that we would like to have them, proactively look at what we're trying to do with the mapping. Obviously, we're going to keep the maintainers very aware of what we're doing. We might ahead of time say, hey, please give us your top 3, and then we map them and say, this is what you're going to be, what categories your module is going to fall under, just to let them know ahead of time. We don't want any surprises and have module maintainers not be in sync with what we're doing. All right, another thing you can help with, how many people have gone to the project detail pages on Drupal.org? So you go to Drupal.org and you say, oh, I'm looking for, I don't know, some way to display. So I go to paragraphs, for instance. How many people have actually looked at the paragraphs project page? That's the place that has, as you can see up here, it has the description, it has the maintainers, has all kinds of information, but no 2 project detail pages are the same. Everyone is done by the maintainer in whatever fashion they want. So it's very difficult to find specific information. So we're looking to make that better, both on Drupal.org, and because we're going to be pulling information in from Drupal.org, we want that to be more consistent on the project browser side. So we're looking for help there. Here's the first pass at the meta tag. So right now, what we have, if you go to Project Browser and you click on one of the cards and you come to the detail page, don't worry about what's on there right now. That was just a proof of concept that we could pull the information over from Drupal.org. We need to actually build out that whole detail page. So we need front end, we need designers, we need developers to help us write that code, and then we just need feedback, documentation, testing, anything like that. So there's another easy way to contribute. I hope you found by what I've been saying so far that there is room for everybody. A lot of times these core initiatives, if you know how to heads down, back end, PHP programmer, there's really no way to contribute. In this project, there's a way for anybody to be able to contribute. So If you've never contributed to Drupal before, this is a perfect opportunity to learn the process by doing very easy, very worthwhile, but not as technical tasks. All right, so here's some of the new stuff. Some of that might have been a repeat from last year with some differences because we've made changes to all of that. But here's something new. On the front end, we're using Svelte. Svelte is a JavaScript framework, but even more than that. So everything between the header on that project browser page that I showed you, everything between the header and the footer is actually presented by Svelte. So it's a modern front-end framework. We're going to get that into core, which is exciting. So good reason to learn Svelte. It is compiled code. So the advantage over something like React is React, you always have to have the most recent version in your code base. With Svelte, it's compiled code, so you don't have to worry about that. So it's going to be easier for us to get this into core than some of those other JavaScript apps. So at Design for Drupal, which we held last month, there were 2 talks. The first one was Introduction to Svelte. There is a recording. I put a QR code here. You can also just go to YouTube and look for Design for Drupal and look for intro to Svelte. That's the first one. Jay did a really good job, from what I understand, walking through how Svelte works. The second one was done by Chris Wells, who's the other initiative lead for Project Browser, and he did Understanding Project Browser's Svelte front end. So he actually went in and explained how it works in the Project Browser world. Definitely need help with that. So if folks are interested in that, let Chris or I know and we can give you more information. But I recommend watching those 2 quick videos first. Front-end issues to work on, there's a lot of them here. I'm only going to mention a few of them. If you want to help with themability, you can just update some of the class names to make them more consistent with the new Drupal design system. You can refactor CSS into some CSS using CSS variables. There's a lot of CSS out there that can be cleaned up. So if you're interested in something like that, there's some larger tickets where you just have to do these, clean up to, a bigger set of code. There's another smaller one just to adjust the radio button design because it doesn't meet the Drupal design system right now. So there's links to all these different issues. There are other things like adjusting just the little, I don't know, they call it a chip design. Important thing is making the image in the project browser. So you go to the card, which has as I said, the project name, the logo, and the short description. That logo, making that clickable to go to the detail page. Right now, the title goes to the detail page, but the image doesn't. So that's something that somebody could help out with. Let's see. I'm not going to go through all of them, as I said. Oh, there's some that just need review. Some of these are done, and they just need somebody to go in and actually review them. One of them is the CSS replaced by Drupal classes. And then there's a little more technical ones, clearing the keyword search with one click, just to make things easy for people using the project browser. Back-end issues, these are a little more technical. Right now you can go to either add a new module or you can remove modules. We need to work on the uninstall, making the uninstall easy from Project Browser. That doesn't sound very easy to me though, so that's going to take some work. From the front end, from the usability standpoint, how do we present that to a user, explaining to them that I uninstalled this module, I uninstall Path Auto, for instance, also might uninstall Token or some other modules. So we'd have to figure out all the dependencies and what really needs to be uninstalled when you uninstall one. So that's a little more complicated, but certainly there's very brilliant people that can help with all of these different things. I spoke about the API. So the Drupal.org project browser, the information is going to be still added by the maintainers. And when I say maintainers, those are the folks who create these modules and who help keep them up to date. So they do that in the Drupal.org project pages. We need to keep those in sync with Project Browser at all the time. So working on that real-time sync is something that we really need. Right now, we just have a mock API that shows we can do it, but the details need to still be worked on. Things like the tab order, or, as I said, implementing the detail view. I don't know if is anybody in here interested in testing or know anything about the testing framework, testing coverage. We definitely need people to help us add testing coverage before we can get this in. They won't be accepted into core, a lot of our changes, until we get the tests. So we could definitely use help with anybody, maybe somebody on your team or in your company that's done a lot with automated tests to help us out. We could use that help. All right, so here's a big one. What's next? Well, there are a lot of dependencies. Project Browser, we've done a really good job of getting community feedback, building it. You can go out and, like I said, try it, give us feedback on usability, accessibility, design system, all that. But what we really can't do as a Project Browser team is package manager needs to go into core. Automatic updates needs to go into core. Those are the things that allow you to click that button to install it right from the website, so you don't have to know a terminal. I used to do Drupal training for a long time, and as soon as I mentioned the word terminal to folks that are brand new to Drupal or site builders, oh, the glassy looks. It's like, I am not having anything to do with a terminal. I don't want to know what Composer is. I don't want to run Composer commands. I don't want to be on the command line. I want to do everything from the interface. So that button that says, install, add and install that I showed you, we need package manager and automatic updates to be in core for that to work. So before that can happen, there's this PHP tough, which I don't honestly know a lot about. It's the updateframework.io that explains it all. It is a way to secure your code during the update process. So when you do that automated install, you want to make sure that that's absolutely secure, how it's being passed and all that. So this tough framework, from what I understand, is a collaborative work in progress between Drupal, WordPress, and a bunch of other open source communities. So again, totally out of the Project Browser team's control as to when that'll happen, but they're actively working hard to put that in place. Once that's done, we need the Drupal Association to add some server infrastructure for the package signing. So in order to pass packages across, and I don't want to get too technical, but in order to do updates, you need to pass information, pass the updated code. That needs to be signed. Just means it needs a, certificate. That needs to be done by the DA. So we need the PHP stuff done. We need the DA to do the server infrastructure. Then we need package manager. Then we need automated updates to all be in place before we can actually turn this on in Drupal core, okay? So there's a lot going on here. If anybody wants to get involved with any of those things, or their company wants to get involved in helping move any of those forward, by all means, that would be great. What we're considering, and this has only been talked about in our group, whether we release this as an experimental module without the auto install. What do folks think about that? To me, that's a huge letdown. I mean, the premise of Project Browser was you were going to be able to search for modules and install them with a click of a button, right? Until we get all these dependencies done, we can't do that. So we're thinking possibly put it out there as an experimental module. It would still have the help text. When you clicked, I want to install this, it would just give you this instructions on how to do that out of a command line. It would be an experimental module, though, so typically only people who are very seasoned and very technical would ever know how to install an experimental module. So it's not like it's going to be visible to, our target audience. but we still don't know whether that's something we want to do. We don't want to have people say, this is Project Browser, this is, not what we were looking for. We want Project Browser to be a great thing that everybody uses, and it meets the requirements that Dries put out when he announced this initiative. So we're still debating that. If anybody has any thoughts on it, certainly I'd be willing to speak with you afterwards. All right, so why should you contribute to Project Browser? As I said, I found so many people struggled with, it's pretty easy nowadays to install Drupal, right? There's many, many ways you can install Drupal. So you get a great, nice Drupal site. Now what do? I want to add some library functionality. I want to add a storefront. I want to add event management, whatever it might be. How do I do that? Hopefully Project Browser helps them be able to search for and find things that they would like to add to their Drupal site. The Recipes and Distributions Initiative will help with that as well. We in Project Browser used to talk about use cases. A use case being, I want to create an event management site for DrupalCamp Colorado, for instance, right? I want to do event management. So there'd be a use case that says, here's the different functions that I want to install. I want to install event management. I want to install a shopping cart, or whatever it might be. Distributions and Recipes has taken that over. So that's what they're going to do. And hopefully we'll be able to browse for recipes just like you browse for modules at some point. That's not a short-term goal, that's a long-term goal, but just so you see how the initiatives fit together. As I said, taking folks to the terminal is really hard. As soon as I heard about this initiative, I was sitting there. No, actually, I was sitting at my house because it was during COVID and it was a virtual DrupalCon. But when Dries talked about this, I went back thinking about all the training I did and all the struggles people had. This is such a great and exciting initiative. If we can get this into Drupal, we'll really get people to say, hey, Drupal is really easy to use. Because right now when they install it, they don't know what to do next and they might move on to somewhere else. We want to keep them in Drupal. So hopefully by having this easy way to add functionality, that'll get them excited about Drupal and want them to build bigger and better things. So I always keep this document up to date, or I try to. It's bit.ly/pb contributions with an S. The QR code is there. That always is kept up to date with ways you can contribute, and we keep trying to update that as issues are closed and as new issues come up and as new things are needed. We keep that. So if you're looking, say your company gives you 4 hours a week or whatever it might be, or you're just interested in contributing on your own, take a look at that document and you'll find something that you would be interested in doing. And we appreciate anybody that does help us out. Even as I said, even just giving us feedback is super helpful. All right, so how can you join the initiative? Well, you can join the Project-Browser channel on Drupal Slack. So first you have to join Drupal Slack and then just look through the channels and find Project-Browser. We have a meeting. I lead a meeting on Tuesdays at 4 p.m. Eastern. It's more of the site builder, feedback, categories, that kind of more user experience, accessibility type of stuff. On Wednesdays at 10 a.m., Chris Wells, the other initiative lead, does a little more deep dive into a little bit more of the technical. He'll talk about that tough stuff I talked about and the signing of the certificates. They'll do a little bit more technical on Wednesday. So we have two options for folks to come to. They're all asynchronous. They're all done in Drupal Slack. So you don't have to come at those times. You can come anytime in the next 24 hours. We put threads out for different topics we're talking about. So one might be give feedback on the categories, and then people just, give opinions, give, input there. Or it would be who would like to help with this particular issue, and people hop in. So you don't have to be there at those times, or you can just, read through and keep up with what's going on. So it's the Project Browser channel on Drupal Slack. And I want to take a minute before I forget to thank everybody who has contributed. We've had hundreds of people contribute to this project so far, some in very small ways, some in very large ways, but everything that is done has been very, very helpful, so thank you. Reach out to Chris or I at Chris from Redfin or Leslie G on Drupal Slack anytime. We can help you out. And now we have a few minutes for Q&A. You'll have to speak up though, so that I can hear you. Yep, I will. Yep. Very hard to see with this light. Anybody have any questions up there? Any feedback? Anything we can do better?
Do you have to wait for that Tufts or even the experimental module?
Do I have a link to Tough?
The PHP Tufts project?
Yes.
Waiting for that before you can even do the experimental module.
We have to wait for that before we can even do experimental. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, there is a link here. Where did I put that Tough? Anyway, let me go to the first page here so you can all get the QR code. Probably an easier way than what I'm doing here, but we're almost there. Just take that QR code. And, as I said, it's probably best if you have these slides. There will be a recording, of course, but to get the slides with all the links, just scan that QR code. I'll leave it up for a minute after I stop if you want to come closer to get it, if it's not big enough, not large enough. Any other questions from anybody? Does everybody see how they might be able to contribute? Anybody new this interest? Thank you. You have a question? Okay, so I couldn't hear all of that because I have a fan right here, but I think I caught a little bit of it, so I'm going to try and repeat what you said. So you're saying what we did was we created an issue for each person that went and tried the browser out and gave us feedback. We created something called a listening session. So we had kind of one-on-one conversations with folks at Contribute Days. We did some yesterday where they gave us feedback. I believe Amy June is asking, did we take all that feedback, put it together in some kind of document so that we can look at overall feedback? Oh, when do we anticipate? I don't anticipate stopping them because as this grows and as this gets released, why not keep getting community input? I think to me, that's valuable. Maybe they're not just go in and just check it out because, we might not be making changes right away, right? But long term, we might say, there's changes to be made. But there might be accessibility issues that, the folks we had check it out, maybe they didn't find, so that would be good feedback. So like any project, anybody can give feedback at any time, but yeah, you are correct. We might end up not doing those listening sessions going forward, but for now they're helpful. We had new folks in here yesterday that we actually did some listening sessions with, and we got some really, really good feedback, things that we hadn't even thought of because they came from a different perspective than other folks that have checked this out. We had a project manager, for instance, that was looking at things in a little bit different light, so we got some good feedback. Did that answer your question? Yes. Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Don't think I see any hands. All right, well, I hope this was helpful. Please share this information with anybody on your team at your company and reach out to me or Chris if you have any questions. Thank you very much for coming.